So on Monday, I will meet with Robert over at Deep of Awan to pay my
Oh,
respects to Achan Po and give Robert a formal introduction to um, Dhamma V2. Uh, they
who's
both
that?
have a skill that I don't have,
Uh-huh.
and that is the ability to speak, read, and write Thai. And so Dhamma is a monk who ordained about the year that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa died. I don't know whether he knew Bhikkhu Buddhadasa or not, but that was 1993. He's English, so he's been a monk now 27, 28 years. And he is uh, doing a lot of the translations of stuff that has never been translated. Meanwhile, there's an entire task force of Thai people that are rooting stuff out, getting it ready, and putting it on the internet in the Thai language. And so, what we're looking for then is for Robert to assist Dhamma Vitu in the translations of that stuff into English from Thai, directly from Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. And Robert is sufficiently advanced with Thai language to actually read uh, the suttas in Thai. And the suttas, because they were old and translated long ago, actually have some antique letters in their alphabet that the modern Thai doesn't even use anymore. So anyway, that's going to happen on Monday.
Cool.
Robert lives in northeast Thailand, about 50 kilometers south of Chiang Mai.
Did he did he start out as also one of your Skype students?
Yes, quite a long time ago. Actually, if you want to know, he started out as a Mormon missionary, and he learned the Thai language through their schools.
Huh.
And then when he got to Thailand, he says that he was only comfortable in talking to Thai children, but eventually he picked up his skills, and that the more he learned in Thai language from Thai people, the less he found in Mormonism, and he started studying Buddhism on his own.
Huh.
So that's a very interesting story. And so now I've got him all deep into Bhikkhu Buddhadasa.
Yeah, I mean that's an improvement to be sure. I'm not an expert on Mormonism, but I'm willing to put it out there that the Dhamma is superior to that.
Well, the ideals, or let us say the original purposes of each and every religion is quite high. But that what happens is that the people in it get attached to the story
Mm.
rather than the moral of the story. And I can show you how that happens in Christianity in 100 different ways. My favorite is with the story of Adam and Eve. They get wrapped up into snakes and women feeding men and morality and all kinds of other stuff, to where the story is actually quite simple when you understand eating of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Eating of the fruit is that you have to, um, let us say, put up with the consequences that, like the fruit of the path. All right. So the fruit is the consequences of that which has to be eaten, and that the fruit is of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, what we mean by knowledge of good and evil in this regard is uh, I know that this is good and that's bad. I know this is right and that's evil. All right. So what I do is I bring myself into a judgmental mind, which
Huh.
leads into hypocrisy.
I've never heard it. Yeah, that's a very in the spirit of the Dharma interpretation of that story.
Mm.
Like
Well, every story like that.
cautioning against like having strong opinions, as we've done many times before. Yeah, that's good.
Well, even in Mormonism, if you look at the ideal goal is that each person is a god on their own planet. Well, a god on one's own planet is very similar to now take all of the airy fairy stuff out of it and put it into the sense that one being fully accomplished, an arahat, is very much like a lion or his own god, and he lives in a world that is quite separate from the world that most people live in, the world of greed, ignorance, ill will. And when somebody transcends that world, then they're like a god that lives on their own planet. So now that I put a cherry on Mormonism, I hand it back to you as an interesting meal.
Yeah, I'm I'm just saying, we can probably be happy for Robert that he came to this, because at least in the modern conventional way that religions or religious communities tend to work, there's a lot less of that original, maybe spiritual stuff going on, and way more of the fairy tales and stories and dogma. So
Hmm.
I count it as a victory.
Well, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has been known. In fact, he's quite famous for talking about that it would be better for people to go to the depths, to the heart of their own religion. But what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa failed to understand was is excuse me, let me finish the statement. Rather than change religions. And the reason for that is that if you're going to go from the surface of the religion that you were in to the depths of another religion, that's actually means that you're going to have to start all over again. But hopefully, Buddhism is the one that at least has a funnel down to the bottom. To where the problems with Christianity is that there is no really good master teachers who fully understand and live a life the way that Jesus lived.
Yeah.
That they've kind of got a disconnection there, and that disconnection was almost certain for Buddhism also. That there was every likelihood that the actual teachings would have gotten lost, just like they've gotten lost in all of the other religions. And so that's what makes Buddhism kind of unique. There's something else to look at, and that is that let me finish my point about Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was saying that everyone should find the depths of his own religion. That's a better way to do it than to change religions and go to some other religion and then have to go to the depths of it. All right. So what Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was missing out on, because he was right, philosophically, that's absolutely correct. The problem is that here he is standing at the gate of the actual teaching of the Buddhism, inviting people in. He assumes that there are other people like that within Christianity,
Mm. Yeah.
and that there is not. In fact, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa caused quite a revolution in Thailand. He's actually engineered a major change in the way that the Thai people think about Buddhism, because the real teaching of the Buddha was really hidden away and was available only to monks. That it was Bhikkhu Buddhadasa that brought it out into the open for the Thai people, and it was also his idea to send it to the West with students like myself and Santa Caro and others like that. Well, Now it's 25 years after he's died that any of us are getting ready enough to where we can actually carry on in his tradition. And that is just the understanding. Now, here's the next point that I was about to make, and that is that at the depths of every religion is truth that will set you free. Then what happens is that the Buddha was not the only one to come to truth,
Mm.
and that the Buddha said so himself, that this is just an old path that I have found, and that it has been found before and will be found again. And we have a number of people who we can attribute to that: Lao Tzu, Cheng Tzu, perhaps Confucius, perhaps Zoroastria, um, Jesus, uh, Eckhart Tolle in modern times, many of them. Who knows about Muhammad? More than likely, based upon his behavior, he was more like a warlord than he was
Yeah.
um, a master teacher. But in any regard, what Islam is founded upon is deep wisdom, and that what has happened is with Christianity, the Buddhist religion, Islam, and I've also seen it in Taoism in China, is that it becomes encrusted over with hypocrisy. In other words, if I can't follow my rules, then I'm going to make you follow them.
Yeah.
And we see that that's really the major issue with Christianity, both in the Catholicism and in evangelical Christianity in the United States. There's a lot of rumbling. There's been quite a number of years since the evangelicals had a real outbreak of a number of high-level Christian preachers getting caught sexually. That happened late in the 1980s, and right now it seems to be happening again. But
Mm.
now, in the world of Trump, that it's having much more impact than it did then. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church is again beginning to fall apart over their sexual picadillos.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Is that Christianity and both Catholicism and evangelicalism, or the Protestants in the United States, and this, by the way, is also within the Methodist Church, that they're experiencing these kind of things too. Uh, but in let us say on both sides of the fence of Christianity, one of the things that they're very, very big on is sexuality. And thou shalt get married, and you've got to do the right thing, and all of this kind of stuff that gives rise to a whole lot of laws that are both in the United States and in Europe. Well, the European people did not like it very much. What happened with Hitler and the Pope of the time? I don't remember his name, but Catholicism got a really heavy hit, and so Catholicism is almost falling apart in Europe, especially in places like France and Germany, and but other countries too. That Catholicism has really died off. Um, to where Protestantism is now doing that same kind of thing in the United States, again, with the two-pronged issues of messing in politics and messing in sexuality. Both
Yeah.
of these are no-nos um, uh, from what Jesus would be teaching. Where Buddha would entertain the kings because the kings came to see him, but he would never go to see the king. Well, he went to see his own family, but other than that. And Jesus would have the same thing to say about render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. So The real original teachers would have said to not deal with politics, to stay away from it, that it's dangerous. The Buddha's got a lot to say about it, with identity and identification with outside organizations and
Mm.
holding views, the views that we hold that are in line with the political organization. So, um, staying away from politics is something that I think that all religious people should want to do. And yet, both the Christian sides, the Catholicism and the Protestantism, have seen fit in the modern times to get really deeply involved with politics. But the Catholic Church has actually been doing that, I think, forever. I think that it's hard to get them out of it. But it's very hypocritical when they do engage in politics, that it's really not part of the spiritual path. And so both Christianity's sides are taking enormous hits right now from their, let us call it constituencies, their the
Yeah.
memberships of the organizations. Um, Buddhism, by the way, in Thailand is under different kind of pressures, and the pressures that Thailand is in is the pressure of the time of the youth, because in the old days the family would put a lot of pressure on the kids becoming a monk for a couple of years, to where that pressure has come off, partly due to the let us say that universities have replaced the ordination, to where there's much more value. The family see it's more valuable for the boy to spend 2 years at university than it is to spend it as a monk. I disagree. Let's expand the idea from 2 years to 6 years, and then say, okay, 2 years as a monk and 4 years at a university, as opposed to 4 years in university and 2 years of nothing,
Yeah.
or two
What's
years as
the
a monk and 4 years of nothing.
so what's the deal with being a monk for a couple of years and then disrobing again? I
That's been the Thai tradition that has kept this country's unity. There are several things involved with that that look kind of innocuous on one level, but they become quite remarkable. One is that there is a sutta in the Digha Nikaya, number 31, that talks about the duties of a layman, and that the duties of one of the four duties of a layman is to hand authority for the household over to the wife. All right, that actually is something that will then create matriarchy and and make a matriarchal society. In fact, Thailand is curious in that in politics, it's patriarchal. It's not a fully matriarchal society. Within politics, for instance, the police, the um, military, and the politicians are normally men. However, the last prime minister was a female, Yingluck. So, uh, but in the household, the grandmothers wind up with all the authority. So long as they can keep the tradition going, that they put the young men in the temple for a couple of years, he's going to come out of the temple in the following way. He's not going to beat his wife. In fact, he's going to hand authority to the household over to her. He's not going to beat his kids. He's not going to drink. He's not. He's probably not going to gamble, and he's going to be an upstanding citizen. And part of that upstanding citizen is he's going to continue to support the temple that he was ordained in, and perhaps will then become what in America we would consider to be an elder or a board of deacons,
mm,
because the temples in Thailand The political business and the monetary business of the temple itself is not done by the monks; it's done by the laymen, the old laymen, who are basically the main supporters of the temple. And you look at that nowadays, and you can look back at these old men and ask the question, were you a monk when you were young? And every one of them will say, yeah. All right. So that's the tradition that we're looking at, is for the young men to ordain. And if you think about it, that's exactly what happens in Mormonism. It's exactly the same thing, except that the education that the Mormons get is not nearly as good as the education for as the monks, because they're sent out all over the world basically to spread Mormonism that they've learned at home all their life, to where in Buddhism it's intense that the monk actually comes into the temple and actually learns the real teaching of the Buddha.
Yeah. Is the whole concept of being a monk for a while? So, I guess I have the idea of like the Catholic monks more in my head, where it's kind of a lifetime deal where you're not supposed to ever leave if things go according to plan. That's not the Buddhist way the monkhood works, right?
No, no, not at all. And it never has been that way. In fact, the tradition is based upon a story that one man ordained 7 different times. And so that's the upper limit, is for one to ordain 7 times. Now, in practicality, is mostly 3 times. The reason, by the way, that that guy disrobed and re-robed again was because he needed to help his family during the planting season. And so he
Mm,
would go in, and Buddha gave him permission to go do what his mother told him to do.
okay.
Didn't, in fact, the Buddha was very big on mothers too. That's part of the reason why he ordered his lay followers to hand the reins of the home over to the wife, to let them do the business, let them make the decisions. About the best that they could hope for in the United States would be to somehow bring it to some equilibrium, so that the man gives some of the control of the house over to the woman. But normally, what that means is he does the business and he does what he wants, and the wife has to do all the housework and the housekeeping. And that's
Yeah.
basically the way that it's looked at in the West. To where in Asia, the family takes care of the house because mom tells them to, and mom's the boss. Because dad's actually either formally or informally, but he ceded that control over to mom.
Mm, hmm.
So yes, Buddhism actually promotes matriarchy.
Yeah. So is it the case that if one were to maybe go to a monastery, and basically upfront say, I I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Can I stay here for a couple of years? Is that how it works?
No. Why would you make such a statement? There, if you want to know what they're going to be interested in, here's one of the most curious, and that is that you will actually need your mother's permission to ordain.
Yeah, I think you told me that before. I remember
Oh,
that.
okay. All right. So, um, the second point on that would be that I would recommend um, that you get a hold of the ordination ceremony in a script that you can read, and I can provide that with you, and you memorize it. Because if the student monk or the layman, let us say the bodhisattva, who is to be ordained, if he actually has his part memorized, everyone at the attendance of that ceremony will give a check mark. That it's almost an unwritten or unspoken rite of passage. It's not a trivial thing to memorize either. So that's that. But if the monk memorizes that, every monk in attendance will know it, and that gosh, I would say this: that when Westerners ordain, no matter whether they're ordaining in Thailand or in the Theravada tradition anywhere in the world, that ordination ceremony will be it will be an event that will be well attended. It will be auspicious. And it would be doubly auspicious if the man who is being ordained memorizes his part of the ordination process.
Yeah.
So those are the two requirements. Not that you're upfront about how long you intend to stay ordained, because times change. You may be dead before those 2 years are up.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, who knows? So, in any case, the ordination should be a life-changing event. I would say that there's a lot of confusion about whether someone is a sotapan or not. I would say that if a Westerner is willing to jump through the hoops and become ordained, that he is fulfilling most of the requirements of being a sotapan, which has to do with dedication of the path. I mean, how dedicated can you be if you're going to change your whole life and ordain?
Yeah. Basically give up all your possessions, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm. So that dedication to the path it very much, you can see where the language comes from. That it very much is a change of lineage. That now I see my family, very much so. Achan Po, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, other monks I know, good Dhamma friends. This is the life that I lead. And that I no longer hold to the life of my family in the United States, which are all Christians. All of them are Trump supporters. The only one that I have any affection for is my own mother, and her Alzheimer's at the age of 95, 6 or something like that is so strong that she remembers me, but she only knows about 4 questions to ask. How old are you? What do you do with your day? I mean, these are the only so that's all that's left in her mind. So you can understand, for me, that change of lineage is profound now. I did not understand. So in a way, that's what requirement of having mom to give permission to become ordained as a monk. Here in Thailand, they talk about it in this regard, that the mom rides to heaven on the robe tails of her son.
Hmm.
All right, and so that's how it's spoken about, and that mothers in Thailand, when their son ordains, it is a major event for her, much more than his marriage.
Hmm.
I would say that would be possibly the biggest point for a young mother is to have her 20-year-old son ordained as a monk with her and her full family's permission and ceremony.
Hmm.
Some of them even go so far as to rent a horse just so he can ride around the temple 3 times on a horse. I don't know
Okay.
what that tradition is, but I don't think it goes back to the Buddha.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the point. The point is that the mother is actually also not just riding her son's robe tails into heaven, but she's actually giving up her control over him.
Hmm.
That this is his adulthood. He's leaving the house, he's leaving the home, he's going to go live with the men, and he's going to learn the Dhamma. All right. So in that regard, that's the change of lineage also. Now, Western women have the same problem in a different way. And that is that their son is not just going to leave town or leave the house and go down to the local temple. He's leaving town. He's leaving the country. He's leaving the whole world that mom knows. So it's a much bigger deal for Western moms. And on top of that, she doesn't have all of the Buddhist culture
Hmm.
in her own mind. The Western mom does not have all of the stuff that gives the moms in Thailand not just full permission to let her son do it, but positive energy pushing him into it with great joy, and the family's great. So the American mom is not going to be like that. That the conversations that I had with my mom, now that I see um, the situation that she's in now, I wondered why I even bothered to have conversations with her. But I had conversations that lasted with my mom for more than 25 years over this particular issue
Yeah.
of she's Christian. She went to church 4 or 5 times a week, Southern Baptist. She dragged the whole family. She dragged my dad. She dragged me. She dragged my sister. And so you can see with that kind of position that when she's got a son who's not going to go along with that, I mean, she would secretly, I'm sure, wanted me to be a preacher at the local Baptist church. So it didn't happen like that.
I can see
And
that.
so, and so that took a conversation that did not, it was not a short conversation.
Yeah.
It lasted for many years. But yeah, there's a whole other ways. I would say before the year 2000, that conversation was closed, that we had finished it. The 25 years was from 75 to 2000.
And what was the end point? Like, obviously, I know you did it, but like, did you ever make her peace with that?
I would say that I have a dozen or so photos that show the end result of that, with my mom being at various Buddhist temples, at
Huh.
various ceremonies, being basically the queen bee of the whole show.
Huh.
Because remember, Asians are matriarchal, and I was lucky. I was able to fit in very well with the Laotian and the Cambodian and the Thai community. I put Thai third because mostly I stayed in Laotian and Cambodian temples. But I had already spent enough years in Thailand that I knew my way around Asian, and I knew my way around the Dhamma, so that I was accepted very well by many of the senior monks throughout the United States. And so, because of that acceptance and being a Parang, I was already a celebrity just by being a Parang. So, being also deeply accepted within the senior community of the Laotians because of my training with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, that made it such that my mom, just by walking on stage the first time, she was a star of the show. And she got along very well with the other grandmothers that were uh, uh, in her age group, the Asians. So that would be the way that I would say the outcome was her full acceptance. But it was not quick. it
Yeah.
took it took 25 years. So anyway, I'm sure that you didn't, when you called 30 minutes ago, that you did not expect to hear this kind of stuff about ordination and stuff like that, but you were curious, so we went
I
through it.
didn't. I didn't. Yeah. I can't say that I'm not playing with thoughts like that in my head from time to time. Um,
Everybody does. To say that I would not think about ever ordaining and yet I want to meditate are just two contradictory ideas.
yeah. It's in a sense, it's just the logical step. Um, because basically at this point, I would say it's fair to say that the whole Dhamma thing is basically probably shared on the first as my first priority with work. So it's kind of evenly split between those two things at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And from there, it's kind of a logical idea to say, how can I extend this? And that would either be like maybe long retreats or frequent retreats or frequent long retreats, or like going all the way and simply simply live as a monk.
Let me ask you this question then. Well, I'll start with the basics. Is your mom still alive?
No.
Then end of story.
Does the father have to give permission as well, or is he out of the picture?
Sorry, he's out of the picture. Not up
Yeah.
to him. He
I
did not
mean,
have to carry you around.
yeah, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, I think for me it would be pretty difficult to do something that I know would kind of cause a lot of grievance with my family, just because,
Oh, you would want to make sure that you
yeah,
have full permission, but the Sangha itself, I mean,
yeah,
Achan Po, he wanted to see it in writing. Did my mom give permission?
yeah, yeah. I mean, in that sense, um, I think the main worry is not so much from the religious angle with my family. It's more because, I mean, they are Christian, or the family is very Christian. Um,
Very Christian? You don't know what very Christian is. I'll
yeah,
yeah, I'll show
I
you
mean,
very Christian.
I
How
mean,
many of them are monks?
um, like in terms of like what the average level of devotion in Germany is, I guess, probably nothing that we have here compares to like the Southern Baptist community, in terms of fervor and zeal, I guess. But yeah, I have
Their-
a lot of.
but their opinions will be just as strong. They'll still be just as opinionated.
They're more liberal though. They're not like the staunch conservative evangelicals that you have um, over there in the South. Um, I think they're a bit more progressive and open-minded than that, but nonetheless Christian. Um, but I don't think that would be the problem. I think it's more an issue of re basically renouncing the material world, at least temporarily, and
Mm-hmm.
then whether, like, to what extent it's ever possible to really come back from that. If you, like, suppose in 5 years you decide, oh wait, I really want a career, like I want to be, like, suppose you want to make a lot of money, and then you kind of can't because you wasted 5 years. I think that's more of the, like, material success and uh, what about health insurance? Like those kind of, what if everything goes really wrong and you'll be, like, beggar in the street and those kinds
As
of scenarios.
as a monk, health is not health is not an issue for two reasons. One is because of the strong determination in the mind of the monk to be easy to be taken care of, as well as the community of lay people who are associated with the organization to which he belongs will come. I know exactly numbers of cases. One monk needed to have prostate surgery, and he was able to get the prostate surgery in California, but not in North Carolina for some reason. I think it had to do with insurance and other stuff like that. So some layperson was able to get him care that he needed in California. Someone else paid his ticket. He stayed at the temple. He had the work done, and then they sent him back to his home in North Carolina. That was one of them. Another one was this one was also for North Carolina, and the family paid for the surgery to be done, and the surgery was done in Atlanta. And when they found out that he was a monk, they gave him the surgery for free, and in Atlanta. And then it became a conversation of how much money is he going to return to the family who paid for his surgery, because they donated as a gift without having any strings attached to it. But $6,000 was a lot of money at that time, and so that became an issue. He did give the money back, but there was it wasn't a clear cut thing because of the way that donations and stuff are handled. So those are two clear examples, plus the fact that there are two full hospitals here in Thailand, and that the hospitals themselves are unique in the fact that they are staffed by doctors who are either now or have been monks in their past donating their time, and that all the nurses are also fully ordained monks in these hospitals associated with temples.
Huh.
So that the duties, so I think like one of them would have like, maybe 3,000 monks, one of the really big temples in Bangkok. And of that, 100 of those monks will spend their days um, taking care of other monks that come from all over the country.
Oh.
Now, Achan Po has had cataract surgery, but he was resisting that. In fact, he had cataracts in the 1980s. He no longer has them. So, sometime along the way, he has had cataract surgery. I mean, this is clearly obvious if you know what you're doing. You just look at the eyes, and there the cataracts are. And then later you look at them, and the cataracts are gone. And I know that it was good surgery because when the old way of doing cataract surgery, it required thick glasses to wear. But
Yeah.
more modern cataract surgery, they actually replace the lens.
Yeah.
And he doesn't wear glasses, so that would be so he had more modern type of cataract surgery. It wasn't just taking a razor blade and whacking off the top part of the eyeball.
Yeah.
um, so I have never thought about um, healthcare being an issue,
Hmm.
because that's just one of the four requisites that are taken care of by becoming a monk. you're going to get the 4 basic requisites. There will be enough robes. In fact, the robe that you, because of modern cloth and dyeing techniques, the robe they give you will be the only, at your ordination, will be the only robe you'll ever need. I wore a robe for 9 years. Um, so, clothing, shelter, yeah, that's taken care of. In fact, we've got more than you need here in southern Thailand. But I'm sure that if you wanted to ordain, you could ordain and stay in Germany, simply because I know of at least 3 different monks who have been ordained here at Wat Suan Mok and the surrounds, who did go back to Germany, fully ordained as monks. In fact, I
Oh,
think I can even get one of them was Thomas, and the other one I think was uh, started with the letter M, was another one. So, and there is now currently at Wat Suan Mok a German monk, but he's very much in seclusion. You have to be at the right place at the right time for to see him. And that right place and right time would be 9 o'clock at the dining hall. Because that's the time that breakfast would be over. Other than that, he's going to be really hard to get. Germans, for some reason, really like Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. There have been far more Germans in and around Wat Suan Mok than there have Americans.
huh. Okay. I have no explanation in terms of cultural stereotypes. Seems I don't see a connection there. I don't know.
Well, Germany is a whole lot closer to Wat Suan Mok than the United States is.
Yeah,
The
but at that
Americans would
point, does
rather
it
go to the Caribbean.
at that point, like, does it matter if you're flying like 8,000 miles or 14,000?
Yes, it does, because you can get a direct flight from Germany.
Huh.
You cannot get a direct flight from the United States.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of the places in the United States, you'll have to have a connecting flight still inside the United States.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Say from Charlotte to New York, or from Charlotte to L.A., and then from L.A. To Hong Kong or Tokyo, Seoul, something like that, and then from there to Bangkok. It's a hard
Yeah.
trip. So from the East Coast of the United States, it's a long, hard 48-hour slog when you're lucky.
Yeah. Okay.
For you, it's an 8-hour flight.
You're suddenly making it more appealing to me. I'm not going to start up looking one-way tickets to Thailand just yet.
No, don't. And as you heard, I haven't been giving you a hard sell.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to do that. I'm not wanting to
I'm
give a hard sell to my students. If something happens deep inside, I don't want it to be my fist down in there clicking any switches.
Yeah, I guess I'm just hearing what I want to hear and what I'm thinking anyway. So you're playing right into what's there anyway. So yeah, I guess the thing is I have at least 2 more years where pretty definitely nothing's going to happen on that front for me.
I've got a different plan. The next 2 years, you're going to start merging your work and the Dhamma.
How does that work?
I'm going to teach you how to do it.
Okay. I'm
And
interested in that.
in fact, you've already gotten started.
How so?
Well, that wake up bell
Mm-hmm.
to start waking you up while you're at work. And then when we add some of the other stuff, like working on conceit, working on generosity, working on the higher powers of success and safety and security and that kind of stuff, you'll see it integrate right into work. Because why are you at work anyway?
Um, Because I need to make money to survive.
No, go deeper than that. Okay, you that last word you used. Okay, and now we're getting down to it.
Yeah,
You
I
used
don't
the
know what you're
word
playing at.
survive. Survive. I'm
Yeah.
playing at the game of safety. You feel insecure without a job.
Okay.
Right. So your life is insecure. You're a victim of the job that you have. You need it. You feel lonely without it. You feel insecure, unsafe. So if you have a deep sense of security inside, a deep sense of safety, then the job is not so important.
Okay. Yeah.
And when you're not materialistic, then you don't need so much money.
Yeah.
So it's not the money, it's the survival. You're at work because of survival issue. Well, guess what? I know an awful lot of people who survive quite happily without your job.
Do they have other jobs though?
Well, let us put it this way. Everyone needs to have a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And that we go around searching for meaning. We're searching, and in fact, I like the movie The Life of Brian, and Monty Python has a movie called The Meaning of Life. Life doesn't have any meaning, but we still need to have a purpose. And that, in fact, for the Dhamma dude, it's the Dhamma that becomes the purpose. For the Dhamma dude, being free from suffering and all of the skills that are brought in so that
Yeah.
we become free from suffering, that becomes our main purpose in life. In fact, we really understand that uh, through the process of becoming a sotapan, which is a dedication, or again, our purpose in life now is to be free from suffering. So the question is, can you make that your situation while you still have your job? In other words, can you work with the people at work in a fully compassionate, non competitive way? Can you be generous to them? Because the work situation is quite naturally, intentionally competitive. And good leadership's job is to change that competitive nature, that individuals, each one of us, willingness to compete out of our own conceit, that deep I am that's based inside. A good leader is going to change the focus of that from the competition for me against you while we're working together into your competition and my competition in league with each other so that we now are competing for the good of the company or for the good of the organization.
Yeah.
So you want to take our selfishness away from our individual and make it towards the organization. And by doing so, you do it also with bringing others along. And we can do that with generosity. There's a lot of little techniques that we're going to be using for that. And Willie is already ahead of you. He's already practicing this. In fact, one of the things that he's practicing right now is Zen and the art of donuts.
You're gonna have to explain that. I'm really curious now. I'm also a bit hungry, so I would like some donuts as well.
All right, here we go in short. Zen and the art of archery. Zen and the art of archery, there's a whole lot of stuff about bow making and a whole lot of stuff about arrow making that we're not going to go into right now. And so we're not going to also go into donut making. But Zen and the art of archery has to do with form. It has to
Yeah.
do with bodily awareness.
Yeah, we talked
It
about
has
this before for some reason.
exactly. So in that regard, then hitting the target is not the full-on intention of Zen and the art of archery. That would be warfare and the art of archery.
Yeah.
This is Zen and the art of archery, which means now we're much more interested in how the bowman operates, the skill that he uses. Can he come down and draw that bow and then let the arrow fly immediately, or does he have to take aim?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get through the higher dans, it has to do with how fast can you draw the bow, let the arrow fly without concern about hitting the target. The arrow just simply does hit the target.
Yeah.
All right. So Zen and the art of donuts. He's going to bring the donuts for the value that it's going to give Willie, not whether the people eat the donuts or not. So if you bring a dozen donuts and 4 are eaten, then you say, oh no, I'm a failure because 8 donuts are going to the trash or going to the janitor. All right. No, in fact, you don't know what's going to happen to those 8 donuts. 3 of them may go home in somebody's pocket. But the business is not that you are interested in what happens to the donuts. Just like the Zen master and archery is not interested in whether the donut actually hits the target or, sorry, the arrow hits the target or not. Rather, it's the practice of generosity. It's the practice of, let us say, the art of offering donuts to your workmates. In fact, now that we're talking about that, you in fact may want to start looking at that kind of stuff even now.
Yeah.
Okay, because surely your job is not at the level of survival. In other words, your pay salary is so low that if
Yeah.
you buy a dozen donuts, your family won't eat for several days. You're
No.
not in that position.
No.
No. All right. So a dozen donuts, I don't know what they are, but I imagine they're what, $5, $6, $7 a box. I have never bought a box of donuts, so I don't even know what they cost. But buying a box of donuts for the people that you work with, and see, Willie had a particular time that he needed to do that when he got a raise, and that raise brought him to a new group of people with a little bit of authority over them. And so that was the time for the donuts. For you, I'm not sure that we even need a time because we're not expecting any event to happen, but you can just show up with donuts someday.
Yeah. I've actually been.
Or if the group is getting ready to release a product or to have some sort of event or whatever, that's a good day to bring the donuts.
Yeah. I've actually. We talked about this before. I think like maybe 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so recently I'm living in a dormitory again because I'm studying, and we were talking about just maybe things like putting a bunch of sandwiches in the fridge that like for everybody to just take away. And I've been kind of
Yes.
getting my feelers out on that. So just doing like small things for the community, not in terms of like bragging about what a good person I am, but just like seeing that something could be done and then doing it. Just like tiny things. Um, yeah, I've been looking for opportunities to do this kind of stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. So this is the way then to incorporate the Dhamma into your life is by the very things that we want to cultivate within our Dhamma practice. We actually use the worker world, as an opportunity to practice those things.
Yeah, yeah, that makes
Be-
sense.
Yeah, it does. So that way bring them together. The Dhamma and the work will become one. And then you will be working on really important, deep issues. Issues about greed or materialism. Issues about competitiveness. Issues about generosity. These are things. Let's see. Willie just sent me. That's Willie. He just rang in, and his message was everything is beginning to look like Dhamma,
Huh.
which is exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I guess I'm the type of person who worries about the sixth step before even completing the first. And I've always had the idea of one thing that would be really worthwhile for me to spend my time on is to actually help spread the Dhamma. I don't know if this is like being like a teacher or something, but in some capacity using what I can do to kind of help spread this kind of in the way you're doing maybe, because I think that's really worthwhile, and that's really, in terms of reducing suffering, and being generous, like sharing the Dhamma is obviously really generous because you're giving like a precious gift to someone.
You've heard that before, I'm sure. That's one of the ways that we speak about it. Yes, that the Dhamma is the most precious gift of all.
Yeah, I've heard it in the context of giving, of generosity and giving dana, like in terms of like the Dhamma is given freely because it's beyond a price. Like it's so valuable that you can't put a price on it, and that therefore it's free. I think that's the context I've heard that.
Mm-hmm. We also look at it from the concept of paying it forward rather than payback. I could never pay back Goenka. I could never pay back Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, even though both of them are dead now. Even when they were alive, there's no payback. Cannot pay back. But we also recognize that we cannot pay back our parents. That the life that they gave us, we cannot pay back. But in our society, we also understand the idea of paying forward. That because I got good child care when I was a child from my parents, I am obligated to be a better father to my own children. All right, so we pay that forward. We have to be good parents because we got the gift of being taken care of when we were a child. So the Dhamma works exactly that way. That actually Goenka talks about it in the sense that in India, whenever they would plant trees, they would have to put a wire fence around the tree. And it had to be because the trees, when you're planting them, the leaves are kind of bushy. And so to keep the cows from eating the leaves, you need a circular fence around that tree to keep the cows from eating the leaves of the tree and killing it. But once the tree gets big and tall enough so that what leaves the cow can eat are very low hanging and he can't eat the higher leaves, then we can remove that fence, that barrier, and the tree will survive on its own. But then later, when it gets to be fully grown tree, now it supports much life. There are many squirrels and birds and insects and ants and thousands of beings will live in a tree, and they cohabitate quite handily. So the fence, the tree could never pay back the fence for the protection, but it does pay it forward because all of the animals that are living in the tree are being supported by the tree. And so you can see that that's exactly what happened with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, that he got good training and he passed that to me. And I've had good experience and good training with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po and many other monks. And so I'm now, let us say, under the happy direction of Achan Po. And as I said, I'll be going to see him on Monday because Robert is over there now. But he and Robert have already been talking about Achan Po really likes. He's hearing now for the first time that we've got quite an internet thing going. We've got literally hundreds of videos, or at least 100 videos, and hundreds of hours. And so
Yeah.
Achan Po just found out about that. And
By the
so
way, by the
yeah.
way, I've recently seen that one of our videos has like 20 views or something,
Uh,
and it
hmm
even had a comment saying that the person really enjoyed our series. So that made me really happy.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, you see, is that many people can gain benefit from listening to these talks. Many people can do that. Those videos will be on YouTube for as long as there's a YouTube, which I assume that there's a whole, let us say, um cadre of people who are making sure that YouTube stays up and alive and well.
Yeah,
They're dedicated to that.
yeah,
And so that's good. So in your own case, as you grow in the Dhamma, you'll become more uh, accustomed to it. The more and more you think about it, another how to say it, the more and more your thoughts will be thoughts that are related to and associated with Dhamma. Even if it's thoughts about the outside world, like your job, it'll still be connected to, to Dhamma.
yeah,
Even when I'm laying in bed at night, I want to think about being here now, always coming back to the present moment. Come back to the here now, come back to the here now, over and over and over again, because that's where we will find the Dhamma. Don't find the Dhamma in the past or the future, but we'll find always Dhamma in the present moment. So, um, what happened with me was kind of funny. I remember it exactly when it happened that I felt set up by Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po. I think that what happened with Santikaro was is that Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa would always do a talk, and Santikaro would do the translation. And so Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was free to speak in full Thai because Santikaro understood full Thai. With Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and I, we had to sometimes grope for the right words. He knew English. Actually, his English was a little bit better than Achan Po's. So what happened was is that he would start a talk, and he actually chose, I think, the right talk intentionally. So he gave a short introduction, and then I gave the short introduction again in English, and then he started to talk about the Four Noble Truths. And then I started to repeat what he was saying, and then he says, "Okay, you take it from here." And now I'm on the spot because now Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is right there, Achan Po is there, a full audience is there, a number of monks are there, and Achan Buddhadasa has just made me teacher. I'm no longer assisting him; it's up to me. And so naturally, I fly away with the Four Noble Truths. That's actually been the way that it has been always, that I've been pushed into teaching. And doing this stuff on the Skype is because Achan Po would like it. He's gosh, he's got a lot of Farang under his wings now too. He's got a lot of us because Tun is doing a website, and Anthony is back. In fact, Anthony's here. He's here on this island, and he's got Dhamma Vitu, and he's got Santikaro, and he's got Thomas in Germany, and he's got this other German that I don't know the name of here at Wat Suan Mok now. So he's got a collection of people that he's working with, and he's encouraging each one of us to spread the Dhamma, because all of us have been around him for 20 or more years. Me closer to 40. Uh, so what I'm doing right now is leading up to why you could understand that I would encourage you to start teaching. But there's one more thing that I would like to mention, and that is that the Buddha actually knows about this from the suttas. That he talks about it in the sense that there are 5 ways to learn the Dhamma. One is through practice of meditation, of getting the mind clear. Another one is by studying the Dhamma. Others is by having good friends in the Dhamma, having a good teacher in the Dhamma. But then the last one on the list is the biggest one of all, and that is learning to teach the Dhamma. Okay, so let's just look at your average algebra class for 10th graders. All right? The algebra teacher is at a different level than the student. And yet, when they're teaching algebra, all the teacher has to know is the algebra that he's teaching the students, until the student asks a question that's higher than what he knows. Okay? But the point is that if you have someone who's teaching algebra, the first year they teach it, they're not very good at it. But they're learning to teach algebra makes them better at algebra. Before they started teaching, they were up to a certain level. When they start teaching it, their own skill starts to increase manifold. By the time he's taught algebra for 5 years, finally he's got it down. So teaching algebra for 5 years would actually be better than doing 6 years of just being a student in algebra. This is one of the reasons why at every university that I know of, graduate students wind up doing almost all of the teaching. That the professors, they do some teaching, but they're looking for graduate students that they can train to do the teaching. And so that's true in every profession that I know.
Yeah. I'm actually getting ready to start doing some teaching at my school starting in March. So this is timely. I'm doing the same thing, where I'm teaching like the new people coming in this year.
What are you going to teach?
It's like finance and tax law.
Okay. Germany has taxes?
Who would have known?
Who would have known?
Yeah. I have like tons of these like really thick books here, and there are several of these are, let's not get into it.
Well, you already know the concept. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. And that is, and the Buddha knew it, and every professor at every university knows this, that if you're going to really get the depth of a particular topic, you have to teach it.
Yeah.
Because, see, if we think something and we just think it, then we like what we think. But for most of us, and it's especially true for me, I know, is that when I say something to a student, I probably will go and check it out in the sutras to make sure that what I said was correct, if I have any doubt at all. Now, I could have had that thought without having any doubt about it, because it's only me as an audience. But if I'm putting stuff on YouTube, I don't want to have a whole lot of comments. Well, maybe I could tolerate a few comments of saying, hey, you're making a mistake here, and that suit is different there, and whatnot like that. That would help me clean up my act. but I tend to clean up my act before. In fact, I've been cleaning up my teaching act for quite a number of years. But what I have done also, so the first thing in that cleanup was to make sure that what I'm teaching is correct. But now what I'm doing is I'm finding a way of teaching it in a style that takes the students right through,
Mm-hmm.
rather than dwelling on. Well, one of the things that we could do is always talk about just what the student's question is. But the way that I'm looking at it is to also anticipate their next questions and to go off and to go really, really deeply into it. Another one is to make sure that the students understand what progress really is, because students almost always misunderstand progress correctly. So when they find something that they don't like, they don't see that as progress, they see that as a failure. To where, in fact, seeing some things is actually exactly what we need to do, is to
Yeah.
start seeing things. If we can see the mess, we can clean it up. But we don't want to look at the mess because it's too messy and it's too painful. And so finding ways of teaching so that the students are invited to go see what's there, to know that they can manage it, that they can be a champion, that they can be that lion. That's an important quality to allow the students to come out of victim's position. Now, in psychology, the psychologist will know that the client is playing victim, but they don't know how to get them out of victimhood. But within the context of the way that we're practicing Dhamma, well, the Buddha talks about himself being a lion. He's not a victim, he's a champion. So we have to start changing that mentality. All right. I taught Buddhism for years without understanding that I've got to make that point to the
Mm.
students.
Yeah. Is there any danger to starting to teach too early? Because I've heard of
Conceit,
like, yeah,
conceit.
yeah. I was wondering why you weren't emphasizing that, because I would have thought that this is way more of a problem than the opposite.
Actually, no. The way that I'm announcing it or talking to you about it is to teach the Dhamma actually destroys conceit rather than building it up. But for many Dhamma teachers, it winds up building conceit, especially if the Dhamma teacher wants to make money off of the Dhamma. That's when conceit really gets wrapped up with it. But if you can learn to teach the Dhamma or just share the Dhamma with your friends,
Yeah.
then it doesn't build conceit, especially since, as I was saying for myself, you want to make sure that what you're teaching is not your own ideas, that what you're teaching is grounded in the Buddha,
Mm.
that I'm not teaching me at all. I'm teaching what the Buddha taught.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that that's what I'm teaching, that I'm not teaching now the style that I'm teaching in and the things that I emphasize puts a unique quality to it, but the actual teachings are nothing but the Buddha Dhamma.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that doesn't do conceit very much good. But when the
Yeah.
teacher teaches, this is my Dhamma, then it
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
full
Okay.
of conceit.
I've heard that in some traditions, it's a requirement to have at least second path before you can do any kind of, I guess, more formal teaching. But that's not That's not in the tradition of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa as much,
I
or
don't even think Bhikkhu Buddhadasa knows what you mean by second path.
yeah. Okay, I'll have to look that up in what tradition that is specifically. But I'm sure I heard that. I was told that recently.
Within the tradition of the Theravada, it is normally well known that or let us say it's an understood point that a teacher on his own should at least be a sotapan. Now, my position about that is that sotapans, actually full sotapan, makes the very best teachers.
Okay.
Because the Arahant, he doesn't care anymore. Students. Who
He's
cares about students? Let
he's
them go.
too far too far
Yeah,
advanced.
right. And not only that, but they won't understand what he says anyhow. So you don't want an Arahant as a teacher. You want, in fact, Sotapans make the very best teachers. But as we've talked before, there are very many little gradations of Sotapan. And that the one that's the most important is at step 3, to where that the student is far enough along the path to know that it is in fact the Eightfold Noble Path, the Four Noble Truths, to wit, the Buddha's Dhamma is superior to all of the other religions and all of the other teachings. That this is the way to go. Well, you've already got that. In other words, your dedication to the Dhamma is already up to the level that it needs to be. So I am now defining that to be level 2, or whatever you said.
Yeah, that's interesting. That it's kind of like the professor analogy, right? The algebra professor is so advanced that he doesn't really get the problems of the fifth grader or 10th grader.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it would be like that. That well, it's not so much of the math that he knows, or the Arahant is. Um, they like they like seclusion. And here's the point. Normally, you do not have large congregations of Arahats. Normally, when there's going to be an Arahat or two at the temple, they're going to be good buddies, but normally they're quite on their own, which means everyone else at the temple is still dealing with things like conceit or even ill will that the Arahats have finished with, and they don't want anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are in a discussion or an argument or whatever like that, where there's even a large group of them, the Arahant, he'd bye, I'm out of here. And he doesn't even say bye, I'm out of here. He's just gone. Because he doesn't want to deal with the suffering. He recognizes suffering to the point that he says, I don't want anything to do with it. I would rather be on my own. I'd rather have a clean mind. All right. So at that level, Arahats don't make the best teachers. However, there is a place for them to teach, so that others can the example that I'm using is the example of Sariputta and Mahamogala. Sariputta was the primary, let us say that he was the dean of undergraduate studies. That Sariputta was the master teacher to bring students up to the level of full Sotapan, which meant that there were monks who were, let us say, curious and dedicated to the Buddhist path, but they didn't understand it completely. And so their dedication wasn't strong. Their understanding of the Four Noble Truths was not sharp enough, but they did have respect for the Buddha himself because he was a walking, talking dude. And when he walked and he talked, people went gaga. And so a lot of people were ordained simply because other people around them were ordaining. A good example of that would be that the Buddha would actually seek out other religious teachers and he would get into debates with them, or let us say he would make himself available for debates, and he would not only convert the head dude that he was conversing with, but all of his followers too. So now they would all become monks because they respected the Buddha, but they didn't fully understand the Dhamma yet.
Yeah.
And it was under that condition where Sariputta, that was his job, is to bring them up to the dedication, to the dedicated to the path, dedicated to the end of suffering, joyfully dedicated to the end of suffering. All right. After that, it was in Mahamagala's job to help them through, because see, through the Sotapan is only knowledge. If you look at the second noble truth, you have ignorance, ill will, and delusion. So up to Sotapan is knowledge. That's only one leg of the three-legged stool of the second noble truth, the cause of suffering. Fetter number 4 and fetter number 5 then are the other two aspects, which is materialism, greed, wanting things, and the other one is ill will, normally expressed in anger, disgust, always associated with bad feelings. So when we go down into these two fetters, we recognize that at the bottom of greed is I like it,
Yeah.
and down at the bottom of the anger and ill will is that the feeling I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we've got that, we can actually deal with those two fetters. When we gain those two fetters, what happens is now we begin to see the really deep stuff that goes all the way down to the instinct. That instinctual I am, or that instinctual what they call the self-preservation instinct, that I've changed to the organism preservation instinct, because it's not really a self that's being, it's the organism.
Yeah.
All right, so that organism instinct then is the actual source for conceit. The conceit I am. The conceit I am exists. Now that word I am then always has a third word to it associated. I am superior. I am okay. I am a victim. But we're going to use that third word to define how we see ourselves in that I am, or in that conceit. And that conceit actually colors everything, and in fact, the conceit is the source of the feelings. That's why it's listed as at fetter number 8. Now, personality view is fetter number 1. That's dealt with through knowledge, through understanding, to recognize that the doctrines of self that have been taught by other religions is false. There is no everlasting soul.
Yeah.
That
But
there
this
is, in
is
fact,
is this in terms of the first fetter, is this purely intellectual, or is there
yes,
a direct apprehension of this? Like direct
it
insight into no self, maybe?
actually, that's right. It's an intellectual understanding.
Okay.
That in fact we really can't see it directly until after we've dealt with feelings. Because we recognize that that conceit is the source of the feelings. It's buried that deep. That's why it's listed as fetter number 8. And that we got to deal with fetters number 4 and 5, our ill will and our greed, in order to be able to see the source of those things. And the major source is going to be the conceit I am. This is why Bhikkhu Buddhadasa spends so much time on it. He's not actually talking about the first fetter all the time. He's talking about that eighth fetter, that conceit, that I am, uh, that um, has to be understood, but that we normally don't have the tools to understand it until we begin to deal with our feelings directly. Okay? Because dealing with our feelings directly is only the point where uh, we are beginning to come out of the victim's position to fully grasp that I am truly responsible for everything that happens to me. That there is not one thing that can happen to me that I can blame on the outside world.
Yeah. But the eighth fetter, so the first three are basically first path, and then I think this, what's the sequence? I think the next two.
Yes,
It's
okay,
two, and then the rest, right?
okay, look at the second noble truth, and you see greed, ill will, and delusion. So the first fetter to go is delusion. The delusion about ourselves, delusion about who we are, delusions about the role of society in our life, the delusions about our place in society, etc., like that. And also uh, the delusions about what is and what is not the path. So that by the time we've gotten those delusions out of the way, that's where that dedication to the path goes. Is that all we've got now is the dedication to the path and the skills that we picked up along the way, like mindfulness, like right view, like right effort, and right attitude. These are the four primary skills that will uh, give us the tools that we need to deal with fetters number 4 and 5. By dealing with 4 and 5, now those first 5 fetters are actually the full on definition of the second noble truth. But that's just the level of suffering that it is. So we haven't really gotten down to the really deepest parts. So this is why there is labels in there. There is the Sotapan, the Sotagami, the Anagami, and the Arahat. The the Sotapan, we've kind of gotten a good understanding that that has to do with dedication to the path. Now here's the issue that we need to look at is we need to define these things based upon the fact that the Buddha divides them into each one into two groups. So that there's 4 groups of nobles. There is the path Sotapan and the fruit Sotapan. There is the path Sotagami and the fruit Sotagami, the path Aragami and the fruit of Aragami, and then the path of Arahat and the fruit of Arahat. Okay? Now, for me, I think that the Sotagami step is kind of an intermediate place that doesn't have a good distinction for path and fruit. But we do know that when someone has completely dealt with his feelings so that he can feel the way that he wants to, that would be up to the level of the fruit of anagami. All right. So the path of anagami is the path of seeing the feelings really, really well, being there, Johnny on the spot for them, so that as they arrive, we can begin to change. So the distinctions between the path and the fruit are not as big, not as big as distinction as it is with Sotapan. With Sotapan, it is a major change from the fruit to the path of Sotapan. And then the full-on practice of the Sotapan brings great joy, joy in the Dhamma. But we still haven't solved the issues of greed and ill will. Once we solve those two issues, then we're at the level of anagami. And the questions that I have about that, that in fact I want to discuss this with Achan Po, is what is the distinction between the fruit of anagami and the path of arahat? And the reason that I'm asking that question is because once one has finished with with the with the fruit of having dealt with bad feelings, so that nothing can happen that's going to get you angry, getting arrested, getting beat up, none of those things are going to make you angry. All right, you've gotten to that point, but you still have that conceit. In fact, if you have the chance to, or the ability to fully deal with the feelings, there is a story that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about that have to do with the fruit and the gold and the diamonds. Have I told you this story yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's actually quite germane, so I'll go ahead and tell you the story now. This comes from a document that Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has done. Is, by the way, is on the Dropbox, but I don't think that it's anyplace else on the internet. But the name of the work is "What Is and Is Not the Self According to the Buddha." So this is the
Okay.
name of the document. In that document, in the beginning, he talks about 6 different views of no